Now we're going to talk about something a little bit more interesting. We're going to delve into the world of effects. Now, if your amplifier does not have an effects section on it, don't be alarmed. There are tons and tons of amplifiers out there that actually don't have an effects section on them. Some of the most expensive amplifiers in the world do not come with this. There's just simply no room. So if your amplifier does come with effects, I hope you will find this video somewhat useful. And if your amp doesn't have effects, that's okay. I still hope that you watch this video and that you take some of the information and learn from it. As if you keep progressing and getting more gear, you will definitely run into something that's going to have effects on it. So the first thing we ought to do is distinguish between a couple of different kinds of effects. There's two types of effects that I'm going to be talking about. There may be more. Others may be able to explain this a little bit differently, but this is just how I'm choosing to go about it. So the combo amp that I have next to me has modulation effects, and it also has effects like reverb and delay. I think best understood, modulation effects are effects that actually take your guitar's signal and mess with the signal by means of taking an original signal, taking one signal, splitting it into two, keeping one of the signals clean, and actually affecting the other signal, and then mixing them together after the effect. Reverb and delay, on the other hand, are effects that don't necessarily affect your guitar's signal, but just add things to it or after it that just give it a little bit more wetness, if you will. And what I mean by wet and dry guitar signals, if you play your guitar through your amp with nothing on it, no effects, no nothing, that is a completely dry signal. So when you stop playing, your speaker stops making sound, and there's nothing to really fill in the empty sound. A guitar signal that's a little bit more wet is going to have things like reverb on it that, even though you're not playing, there's still noise in the background that's going to help fill in any dead noise that might make it sound a little bit awkward. So what I don't want to do in this session is list all the types of effects that are out there. There are literally hundreds of different kinds of effects that you can buy. Your amp will come with a whole mess of different things that you can mess around with. It would literally take me hours to sit here and try to explain what each effect does. They all do different things. Even the same effect will vary how it works from unit to unit, from amp to amp. I want to keep it simple in this video. I just want to show you how to bring in an effect after you've EQ'd your guitar signal. So my general rule of thumb is that when you're bringing in an effect for the first time, you want to start light. You don't want to go completely overboard, because that is just going to completely kill your guitar signal. You're not really looking for a tone at that point. You're just kind of looking for obnoxiousness, and that's okay too. Probably one of the biggest functions of effects, I would say, is obnoxiousness. You want to add a little bit of character. You want to have a little bit of fun while playing your guitar. A lot of people, a lot of players will go towards effects, and they will use them heavily. Guitar players like The Edge from U2 is somebody who uses effects constantly. His guitar tone is so saturated with effects that tone, everything that you hear from him, that's just him. That's him as a guitar player. People like Jack White from the White Stripes, on the other hand, he is much more of a purist, and he is not really an effects user. He goes straight for just the sound of the guitar by itself. If you're really wanting to get the most out of your amplifier, you're going to want to implement everything that's on it. You don't need to use effects all the time, but they certainly are fun to mess around with. So I've got this combo amp with me, and basically I'm going to share with you my philosophy of just playing a clean tone and just kind of dialing in some effects. I'm going to try to put, there's 3 different effects I can run here at the same exact time. So I'm going to be dialing in all 3 of them. I'm going to see if I can use all 3 of them, get a good sound, and I'm going to kind of walk you through what I'm hearing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Since there's really no set way to do this, I think this is going to be a little bit more of a helpful way for you to go about this. So here we go. So here is my dry signal. Okay, so it's very, very dry. You can hear my picking. If I'm sloppy, you're definitely going to hear it. There's no background noise to fill in the deadness between my picking. So the first thing I'm going to do is add some reverb, and I'm going to go completely over the top with it just to see what it does. So it sounds a lot more fuller, thicker, fuller, but the reverb is a little bit too much. And as you can hear, what reverb does is it actually simulates being in a room. In this case, I think I have it set to like a large hallway or a church or a chamber or something like that. So that's too much. I'm going to bring that down. And then next, I'm going to add in some effects. I'm going to add in a chorus, which is a modulation effect. And if you remember from the beginning of the video, a modulation effect is when my guitar signal is split from 1 to 2 lines. The original is going to remain unaffected, and the second line is going to be affected in some way. The pitch might go up and down in various degrees. It might go up and down faster or up and down slower, and it might go up and down further depending on the depth setting. And also it might adjust the speed of it. So if my playing is here, that signal might be moved slower to normal, just to create some kind of effect. So let's turn the chorus up and see what that sounds like. So that kind of back and forth sound of the pitch or whatever it's doing is way too much. It's completely distracting from my picking. It just doesn't sound good for what I'm playing. So what I'm going to do is bring that way down. I'm actually going to strike a chord or hit a chord and then let it ring out, and I'm going to bring the dial back to a more pleasing spot. Okay, I like that. The depth isn't too much. It's not too fast or too slow. When I pluck my chord, I can still hear it, and it's not distracted by something else. So let's play that and see what that sounds like. All right, so I like that. Next, I'm going to bring in some delay, and I am going to turn the delay all the way up to go overboard with it, just to show you what it does. What it does is it takes a little snippet of what you've just played, and it's going to repeat that over and over again until that decays out. So, and it's going to constantly be responding to what you're playing. So it's going to sound kind of like this. Okay, so that's going to be playing behind what I'm playing, so it's going to sound just like this. Okay, so what I don't like about that is just not only is it too much, it's just completely distracting from my playing. I can't hear my playing over the delay. So what I want, or what I'm looking for in this case, is to bring my delay down to a spot where my playing is going to be on top, and then the delay is going to be slightly behind it, and it's just going to fill in some of the background noise, just like the reverb does. We don't want the reverb or the delay to take over. We just want it to be a little bit behind, to be a filler. So we'll put it there, and we'll see what that does. Okay, now that's a lot better. I still would like to hear a little bit more of the delay, and I think the reverb and the delay might be actually competing a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back the reverb off a little bit more, and I'm going to add just a little tiny bit more of delay, and this is what this sounds like. Okay, so I still can't hear the delay, and so I'm going to give it a little bit more and see what that does. All right, so I kind of like that. If I had to go into the studio and record that part, I would probably do something like that. So just a little bit of a disclaimer before we move on to session 6. If you are swapping back and forth between channels in your amplifier, if you're changing a channel on your amp, going from clean to distortion or something like that, if you mess with your EQ while you're playing with the effects, what's going to happen is that whatever effects you have on there are all of a sudden just going to sound way different. So you might have to completely redo your effects for every like EQ setting that you have. So just keep that in mind. And let's go on to session 6.